Welcome and good afternoon. I am Jill Perry-Smith, Senior Associate Dean for Strategic Initiatives in the Gazweta Business School here at Emory University. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce our keynote Martin Luther King Jr. speaker, Maggie Anderson. Before I talk about some of Maggie Anderson's accomplishments and accolades, let me preview the event. The event is an exciting and promising collaboration among multiple units across campus, including advancement in alumni engagement, the Department of African American Studies, the School of Law, Emory College of Arts and Sciences, the Hightower Fund, and the Gazweta Business School, all led by Emory's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We will hear from Maggie Anderson, followed by a conversation with Vice Provost for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Dr. Carol Henderson. Your questions are welcome, so feel free to use the chat. Maggie Anderson is the author of Our Black Year, which chronicles her commitment, pledge, and journey to buy Black for 1 year, to buy from exclusively Black-owned businesses, also known as the Empowerment Experiment. Maggie Anderson has numerous accolades and awards from notable associations such as the National Bar Association, the National Real Estate Brokers Association, and notably during these times as we binge watch various networks, she was named the most fascinating woman of 2016 by Black Entertainment Television. There are several points of interest that are particularly notable to our Gazweta community that I'd like to highlight. In addition to earning JD and MBA degrees from the University of Chicago, our speaker, Maggie Anderson, is an Emory alum, earning a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science in 1993 from Emory University. So Maggie Anderson is coming home. While she's spoken at universities across the country, such as Harvard, Columbia, and Howard University, this is her first time coming to Emory and speaking to us in this capacity. So we're thrilled to have her back. Also notable, Maggie Anderson is a former aide to late Congressman John R. Lewis, who of course holds a special place in our hearts. Many of us reside in his 5th district, of course. Some personal observations. One thing that struck me in meeting Maggie Anderson is hearing her describe herself as an activist. While she's an author and attorney, this role of activist seems to really drive her passion and energy. And my hope is, as we listen to her words, we can think of ways that we may be able to engage in social justice and equity efforts that can lead to positive change. I am delighted and thrilled to represent our Emory community and the broad collaborative effort that undergirds this talk. And I am imagining your applause as we welcome to this stage attorney, author, and activist, Maggie Anderson.
Hello, President Fenves, Vice Provost Henderson, members of Emory University administration, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and all our guests, partners, and sponsors. I'm truly humbled by this honor to be your 2021 Dr. Martin Luther King speaker. Thank you, and special thanks to my new friends, Nicole and Jessica, and everyone in the Emory Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for all your hard work in bringing this program together. Thank you to the Department of African American Studies, the Gazweta Business School, the School of Law, the Emory College of Arts and Sciences, the Hightower Fund, and the greatest league of college graduates on the planet, the Emory Alumni Association. I'm so proud to say I earned a distinguished education and elite degree in political science from Emory in Atlanta. I also earned a distinct indoctrination in and introduction to the civil rights community in our campus chapter of the NAACP, in our own little group of proud Black women called FDE. You know who you are, FDE. We are one are we at Emory FDE. Learning legal activism and academic activism and how they ignite and inspire truth and power from my mentor, esteemed Atlanta lawyer and then Emory Law professor, attorney Kevin Ross. Volunteering for campaigns of and serving in the offices of amazing political leaders like Atlanta Mayor Bill Campbell, who gave me my first job out of Emory, trusted me as an ambassador to the world during the bicentennial Olympics. And Congressman John Lewis, you revved me up and you got me ready for leadership. You had me answering phones, sending letters, putting John Lewis signs in folks' yards at all hours of the night, and back at the office early in the morning, listening to and loving your stories of the movement about Dr. King. Even when I needed to study or get back to class, you showed me, John Lewis, that we have to be smart, be successful, and be in the struggle. Otherwise, what's the point? I became an activist, an academic, a leader at Emory. I found my call and my voice, my strength, and some of my best friends at Emory. And because of all of you, whom I loved and learned from at Emory in Atlanta, I live for and will die fighting for equality, empowerment, and justice. I love you and hope to honor you, my alma mater, today. And my new family, the struggling but still strong brothers and sisters I reach and represent all over the country. And I know I don't do it enough, so I want to take a moment to honor my husband, John. He's from Detroit, went to Harvard, got a degree in economics, then earned an MBA in economics and finance from Kellogg at Northwestern in Chicago. And that's when we met. Now, John, along with adoring me and supporting our family and our work as an outstanding finance and investment professional, he has committed his life, both personally and professionally, to building wealth and legacies for his clients and economic empowerment for his community. I know you are honoring me now as I keynote this prestigious event, but know that I would not be here. I would not have had the vision, courage, or fortitude to conceive of, much less conduct our famous stand and study to live off Black-owned businesses for a year, had it not been for that man, my love, my rock, my friend. He's a true American success story who relishes in, rather than regrets, his Blackness. He's raising my daughters and running this movement with me, along with his brother, who also looks after and helps raise my two girls, his nieces. I'm talking about Alan Anderson, Emory Assistant Vice President, Head of University Partnerships, my brother-in-law, my brother, who was right there with us during our historic year. So I want to thank you, Alan. I wouldn't be here without you. Thank you all for being here today. I love and miss you, Emory and Atlanta and FDE, so much. About 10 years ago, Publishers Weekly, in reviewing my book called This Issue, The Lack of Support of Black Businesses and the Rapid Exit of Dollars from Black Communities, a dynamite subject, and our family's experiment, historic and effective. The Library Journal said my book successfully illuminates the roadblocks faced by Black business owners and the racial divide that continues to persist in the US economy. Also said that my book will appeal to students of sociology and economics, as well as those looking for inspiration to effect positive change in their communities. Alfred Edmond, editor of Black Enterprise, said, the Andersons' economic odyssey is nothing short of heroic. But we didn't create the empowerment experiment, then see it through. We didn't impose all of that on our 2- and 3-year-old daughters for kudos or great book reviews. We did it to get here. We did it for a king who fought for and died for us, taught us to peacefully protest, and that without protest, there is no progress. And for us, economic unity, economic solidarity is our most peaceful, most powerful protest against racism, inequality, and injustice. Economic unity is our responsibility, and economic unity should be, can still be, our legacy. After emancipation, African Americans amassed great business power. Cities like Tulsa and Durham are the most documented examples. These cities came to be called Black Wall Streets. African Americans, the Black community, we built schools and churches and banks, insurance companies, grocery stores, hotel chains, drug stores, department stores, hardware stores, hospital systems, entire farming regions, actual stock brokerages, all kinds of shops and professionals thrived, all Black owned. And in the early 1900s, Black entrepreneurship was at its peak. King grew up studying, seeing, and reveling in W.E.B. Du Bois and Carter G. Woodson and Booker T. Washington, titans of industry, studying business, reading books like The Negro in Business when he was at Morehouse, had planning meetings at A.G. Gaston's hotels in Birmingham, hung out with Cirillo McSween, who owned several McDonald's restaurants, served as the treasurer to the SCLC, and then put his own wealth and the group's money into Black-owned banks. Young King grew up surrounded by business owners who took care of the community, risked their lives to become business owners so that they could take care of the community. A grocery store owner and an owner of a large printing company created the first branch of the NAACP in Mississippi. They funded our fight for the vote there, and then they won. And then their names were the first ones on the voter rolls. This is what King saw growing up. Business owners fueling, funding, and facilitating the movement. He grew up seeing economic unity. When they called that meeting within hours of Rosa Parks' arrest, the business owners, the lawyers, pharmacists, grocers, barbers, and bankers, and the Black union leaders came to offer their financial support. Then the Black-owned taxi companies and Black service stations came to offer their support during the boycott. And when the marchers lost their jobs and the businesses were burned down and the taxi drivers were jailed for giving rise to the boycotters and the business leaders were hurt for leading the movement, the Black banks stepped in, the Black funeral homes stepped in. They built war chests for the lawsuits, the protests, to keep the attacked businesses afloat and to cover the lost wages and the deaths and the destruction from the terrorism of the racists. Dr. King was not hoping and hollering for a $10,000 sponsorship from a GM or a GE to pay for the cost for and pave the way to our freedom. The civil rights movement was not brought to you by. When they bombed those churches, the businesses were there. When they hanged Black men, the businesses were there. When they raped the sisters, the businesses were there. When they enacted another racist law enabling more violence and injustice, when they denied another dream or dismissed another death, the businesses were there. They were there for us. We could not win then without the businesses, and we can't win now without strong Black-owned businesses. It's our responsibility. It is their legacy. It should be ours. Hundreds of millions created, recycled by and in the Black community. The Black dollar would stay in the community for 3 years or more before integration. Yes, that consistent prosperity and pride. The businesses enabled the creation of our Black educational, civic, and rights organizations. Madam C.J. Walker, the mother of the Black hair care industry and the first Black woman millionaire, made those millions, then enabled the NAACP and the National Conference on Lynching. This is what Black entrepreneurs do. Remember that. Unemployment was then at the same level as that of whites, and sometimes lower than that of whites nationally from 1880 all the way through 1940. Lower because Black people employed each other in our self-sustained and vibrant neighborhoods in Tulsa and Durham and Tampa, and Louisville's Russell neighborhood, Sistrunk Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale, Bronzeville, Chicago, Harlem, Auburn Avenue there in Atlanta, Magic City in Birmingham, Lincoln Avenue in Cincinnati, and so many more. Black neighborhoods signify genius and greatness, soul and success, elegance and entrepreneurial excellence. Bottom line, as I close this history lesson, Black-owned businesses equaled Black power. And that's why racists and supremacists so vehemently and violently resisted the success of the Black business community. Over 90% of the thousands of lynchings of Blacks that happened during Reconstruction and Jim Crow were of business owners. Terrorism. When that area called Black Wall Street in Tulsa was bombed, then burned by racists, crowds watched the destruction of that vital community and called it a Negro barbecue. I told you about those business owners that lanced the NAACP in Mississippi. Reverend George Lee, who ran a prosperous printing business and a grocery store, prominent leader in Mississippi, he organized that NAACP with his friend, Gus Quartz, another grocery store owner. Lee and Quartz, grocers, registered hundreds of Black voters. Grocers decided to spend their time and money and risk their lives and livelihoods so that those folks who did not have money and power could vote. For that, the two business owners were constantly threatened. One was a preacher, but they fought on for us, for me, for you. And Lee was shot and killed fighting this fight, King's fight. Quartz, he was shot too, but he lived. And then the local white bank stopped lending to him. The local white gas station stopped servicing him. But because they couldn't kill the owner, they tried to kill his business. Then the community decided to put their money together and they purchased their own gas station in Mississippi. And then they did that, and courts survived, his business survived, and he kept supporting the NAACP, and he kept fighting for the right to vote, and the Black people in Mississippi were able to vote. That's what happened. So I hope we take a little time to honor Mr. Lee and Mr. Quartz today. Let's bring them in here today with King. Envision them, honor them too. Think of them right now, think of them. Because every abandoned storefront or lot on Baltimore, every boarded up business on the west side of Chicago is an affront to them. Each time we, especially Black people, dismiss every business owner from our community because of a bad experience we had with the one we begrudgingly engaged a year ago, we dishonor them, Mr. Lee, Mr. Quartz, Dr. King, those brave men who were hanged for trying to keep a store, those brave women who were raped and otherwise silenced for breaking through as labor organizers, business owners, and investors. And each time we don't even try to seek out someone from the community, or we blindly throw our money at these designers and brands and retailers and franchisers that do not have and do not even consider having Black-owned businesses as suppliers, would laugh at the thought of sponsoring an event like this. Each time we disregard the gems you have right there in Atlanta, like Citizens Trust Bank and Steed Media, publisher of the only national Black newspaper rolling out magazine. Each time we do that, we forget them. We forget Mr. Lee, Mr. Quartz, remembering King on his birthday, but forgetting all those who enabled King and his movement for the rest of the year. But not this year, not while I'm here. Maggie home now, back home at Emory. So today we are not just going to remember and discuss what he did, King's legacy. Let's talk about what we did not do and why. Our legacy and responsibility, because almost everything King and the movement fought for and built are gone or at risk. That pride, prosperity, and power he grew up seeing no longer exist. The bank Jackie Robinson built so that Black families can get mortgages and Black entrepreneurs can get business loans, Freedom National Bank, is gone. We celebrate Jackie, we celebrate King when we talk about great American racial progress, but the banks they built and fought for, the banks that helped them make that progress, are dead. Think about it like this. This is one of the things that President Barack Obama taught me at the University of Chicago Law School when I was a student in his con law class. This is what Professor Obama told me. Every ideal that distinguishes our country, every major tenet of our democracy, the right to a fair trial, the right to vote, the right to free speech, labor rights, civil rights, equal housing and employment opportunity, all of those wonderful principles came out of or were perfected by the African-American struggle. Professor Obama taught me that legacy and responsibility. We've always had to push and prod America towards its promise, towards its greatness, and America has fallen way short of its ideal, its promise when it comes to economic equality and justice. It's time for us to push and prod and provoke America again, because I want my girls to know that not only they can buy from JCPenney, that was the 50s and 60s, or work at JCPenney's, we fought for that. My daughters need to know that they can own JCPenney's. So maybe it's time we fight for that too. Let's unite like they did and fight for an America, King's America, with all kinds of people shopping at a retailer or a grocer started by a Black family, like Mr. Lee's family or Mr. Quartz's family. In King's America, all kinds of people are looking for Black franchises and consumer goods brands and Black designers, growing Black family-owned global conglomerates, depending on our expertise and professionals, banking with us, staying in our hotels, just like we do everyone else. Let's unite, all of us, for an America where an already broken and bereft Black neighborhood is not the only place where all the other ethnic groups and majority enterprises can set up shop and achieve the American dream. You know, an America where there's some reciprocity for that, manifest in thriving Black-owned businesses in Little Italy, in Chinatown, in Koreatown, in Greektown, in downtown, in Buckhead, and the affluent, predominantly white suburbs. Why not? An America where it's not a ridiculous notion to a Black child that someone like her can own a grocery chain or a drugstore, that the toaster her mama buys at Walmart or the paint her uncle got from the Home Depot was made by a Black family company. where that child can go to the corner candy store or bakery and see an owner who looks like her and looks out for her. An America where the middle class, working class, Black families and Black-owned businesses and storefronts and professionals are welcomed, a draw, not a deterrent, a disturbance in burgeoning, beautiful neighborhoods. I am fighting for that America. That is King's America. For just over 12 years now, before Trump, before George Floyd's murder, it's been 12 years since the empowerment experiment. My family's stand to buy Black only for a year. 12 years ago, John and I embarked on this life-changing and hopefully community-changing adventure called the empowerment experiment. For a whole year, this naive, nerdy couple would try to prove their love for their hurting community and at times test their love for each other, living out this public pledge. 2009, inspired by the election of our first Black president, hoping the newfound unity would translate into economic unity too. We did it. First for love, then to take a stand, and then to study and showcase how supporting Black-owned businesses can counter poverty, crime, and all those social crises that disproportionately impact Black people. And finally, to provoke more action, more unity, more dialogue and investment around economic justice. You know our stand and sacrifice made headlines, front pages of Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, LA Times, New York Times, major segments on CNN, C-SPAN, CBS News, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC News, BET News, Tom Joyner, Black Enterprise, Essence, countless TV and radio shows, newspapers, magazines, and blogs. We touched millions all over the world, and then I wrote my book, Our Black Year, which is a tribute to our country's Black business history and a detailed account of our stand. Kellogg at Northwestern, one of the best business schools in the world, you know, next to Gosueta, of course, completed the landmark study based on my family's receipts and the data we collected. That study proved that close to 1 million new American jobs could be created if just some of us would make small changes and sacrifices to buy Black. Here are a few more highlights from the empowerment experiment. We spent or otherwise invested over $94,000 that year with Black businesses that we would not have otherwise. Over 90% of our spending went directly into underserved, predominantly Black areas. We went without. We were disappointed by the number of markets and industries where African Americans still suffer from a complete lack of representation. We're disheartened by our own people's lack of pride and solidarity. Our hearts ache seeing up close what my people, Black people, have to go through in these retail and food deserts. Can't get a fresh piece of fish or a banana, forced to settle for inferior goods and service, extortionate prices, and enduring disrespect from shop owners who don't look like and won't live in the community, but come into the community every day, remove the padlock from the steel gates, take money through that slit in the bulletproof glass, and then at the end of the day, put that steel door back down, put that padlock back on, and drive home to their suburbs and enclaves to build up their local tax bases and school systems, send their kids to college, and buy their dream homes and vacations with poor Black people's hard-earned wealth. It was hurtful and fearful being called a racist, a Nazi, and the other N-word, getting death threats and hate mail. It still hurts my heart when I think about what I put my baby girls through, begging me, their mama, for fruit and toys, going to school crying with the shoes too tight, belly poking out of their shirts, and coming home crying because they were teased, all because it took 5 months to find one Black-owned shop offering toddler clothing and shoes. I made my girls eat gas station food like old, putrid bologna and overpriced, oversugared, I guess it was cereal, for dinner, because the one Black-owned grocery store we could find closed 5 months before we finished our experiment. All those businesses we sought and supported and we loved and lived off of, the ones you read about in the book, not just the grocery store, they're all gone. And then 1 month after we finished the empowerment experiment, my mother died in my arms, losing a hard-fought battle with pancreatic cancer. My immigrant mother, a Cuban farm girl who never made it to high school, but was wise enough to teach me that despite what our Cuban peers in Florida told us, our being from Cuba didn't make us not Black or less Black. That just meant our ancestors were dropped off a little earlier. That was my Mima. And Mima was sick and dying the whole year. And I know she suffered longer than she would have just to live to see her only American-born child, her only daughter, fulfill this pledge to our Black community and our country. Yes, we lost a lot that year, but we learned a lot too. And that's really significant because before that year, John and I thought we had it all and that we knew it all. My husband, John, you know, he's from Detroit, undergrad at Harvard. Then he went to Northwestern for his MBA, and he's a financial advisor now. So if you are looking for Black entrepreneurs to support and you're in the market for a Black financial advisor, take it from your learned keynote speaker. He is the best, he is brilliant, and he is definitely Black. I grew up in Miami, in an underserved area called Liberty City. Then, as you know, college at Emory, John Lewis, mayor's office. After Atlanta, I headed to Chicago for grad school like John, went to the University of Chicago for my MBA and my law degree, and was able to serve with and learn from another civil rights hero, then law professor, community organizer, Barack Obama, turned 44th president of the United States. And we fell in love while we were in graduate school. Now that's John and I, not the president and I. Y'all don't get Michelle mad at me. Found great jobs at big companies. We bought a home in a pricey suburb and had our own 2 beautiful little girls, and we're living out our fancy fairy tale life. We supported our community. Well, sort of. We're active in the youth ministry at the Black church. John's a mentor with 100 Black men. We voted Black. We hurt when Black people got shot on the South Side. We got happy when Black folks were nominated for the awards and the Black coach made it to the Super Bowl. We're teaching our daughters to love themselves, their God, their neighbor, their country, and their skin. We were Black, just not buying Black, just like so many, like most proud Black people. But everything else, very, very Black. Y'all know what I mean. We tithed every once in a while. We donated to the UNCF. Wasn't that enough? Philanthropy is commendable, but it must not cause the philanthropist to overlook the circumstances of economic injustice which make philanthropy necessary. Dr. King said that. What are those circumstances of economic injustice, and what are we supposed to do about them? In Asian American communities, the dollar circulates among the banks and retailers and professionals for about 28 days before it goes outside. Our Jewish friends keep their dollar in their community for about 19 to 21 days. And that's why these groups have the lowest unemployment and incarceration rates and the highest household incomes and educational achievement. In the Black community, the dollar lives 6 hours. Used to be 3 years or more. 6 hours. This is why the Black community suffers and is so far behind. This is why racial disharmony and racist systems and structures grow. These are the circumstances of economic injustice that our King told us we cannot overlook. I'm not overlooking anymore, playing dumb, living the easy and empty life, blaming everybody else for the Black community's problems, but can't remember the last time I engaged a Black business owner, can't name one local Black-owned business or bank. Not anymore. I buy Black because I have to honor the unsung business owners that facilitated the movement, the progress, the culture, the community at the heart of my own identity and success. I buy Black because that's what X did, Sojourner did, Medgar did, and King did. So allow me a moment to clarify the misconception about King and Black-owned businesses, that King was fighting for equality and not empowerment, that King was anti-war and anti-wealth, fighting for the poor and against the prosperous, that his legacy was more about making sure we could shop at segregated white-owned businesses and less about building up Black-owned businesses. King was a man of God who stood up for the poor and powerless, spoke out against war and racism and economic injustice that deprived people of their dignity and opportunity. But that he was a prince for the poor who demanded opportunity and jobs does not mean he was opposed to our ownership, our capacity, and our duty to create those jobs. It just wasn't his fight. That's all. His fight was about peace. He wanted integration. He wanted enfranchisement. He wanted to help Black people, all poor people, get jobs, feel safe and free. So no, you didn't hear Dr. King say buy Black. This is true. He didn't have to. When he was flying all over the world and marching and organizing and preaching and meeting and protesting, the Black businesses were right there funding his fight, allowing his audacity. He didn't have to build them up. They built King up. They kept trying to kill our unity, our power, by killing Black business owners and their businesses. But we had economic unity. We were united, and united, we always have more power than pain. Then their hatred of our ascendance was ultimately matched by our hunger for acceptance. And King saw that too. King started to fear that our civil rights victories might come at the expense of our business and economic ones, and his fears were warranted. After the bus boycott, after the March on Washington, after the Civil Rights Act, after the Voting Rights Act, and after integration, when most of the bombs and fires and lynchings and terror dissipated, our economic solidarity and our entrepreneurial spirit dwindled as well. He saw this. He saw that we were losing the economic fight and our economic might. In a public address, his famous mountaintop speech that he delivered the day before he was murdered, he pivoted and devoted the last half of that speech on a call to action to unite against economic justice and for economic empowerment, not just civil rights. He spoke of our collective buying power and urged an economic withdrawal from businesses on the record for discriminating against Black employees or mistreating Black customers. And not just that, King specifically fought for Black-owned businesses, not just the right to go to segregated ones. Here's another quote from Dr. King, the one you don't see on TV or hear on the radio or see in the history books. King said, "We've got to strengthen Black institutions. I call upon you to take your money out of the banks downtown and deposit your money in Tri-State Bank. We want a bank in movement in Memphis. We're just telling you to follow what we're doing. Put your money there." We didn't. Instead, in the 2 decades after Dr. King's murder, it became fashionable to abandon the Black-owned banks and businesses to show and prove that we were good enough to buy from businesses once denied to us. Within 20 years after we lost King, 85% of our over 120 Black-owned banks disappeared. In the 1930s, grocery stores represented the largest category of Black-owned businesses. We had 6,400. When Kellogg did the famous study based on our year in 2010, they could only find evidence of 8 to 12 grocery stores owned by Black firms in this country. That's terrible for Black people and America. In North Philadelphia, a predominantly Black area, for example, over 90% of the businesses there are not locally or Black owned. And what's happening there is representative of all the similarly situated Black neighborhoods across America. I'm sure it's not too different in Atlanta. You know that, you've seen that, and you know it's not right. Black beauty supply stores in Black neighborhoods with 100% Black clientele. Less than 3% of those across America are Black owned. And not just the banks, the grocery stores, and the beauty supply stores. We lost Black hair care too. The one industry birthed by the Black community, belonging to us, celebrating us, sustaining us, helping us, especially Black women, thrive and achieve the American dream. In 1986, again, less than 2 decades after King died, Irving J. Botner, then CEO of Revlon, when asked about competition from Black-owned firms in the Black hair care industry, Botner said this to Newsweek. In the next couple of years, the Black-owned businesses will disappear. They'll all be sold to white companies. He was right. Sport and Wade, Less Jam, Carefree Curl, Strength of Nature, Cream of Nature, Dark and Lovely, Smooth and Shine, Dark and Natural, Stay Soft Fro, Carol's Daughter, all owned by L'Oreal, a French company owned by Liliane Bettencourt, who died in 2017, the world's richest woman. By 2000, L'Oreal had owned all of the largest Black hair care companies. A couple of years ago, Unilever put the nail in the coffin when they bought Nubian brands. Yes, that's all the Shea Moisture products. All these brands and companies are no longer Black owned. And the fantastic Black owned companies we do still have can't get into the big retailers because the L'Oreals and the Unilevers edge them out. Less than 5% of the Black hair care section represents Black owned companies. I'm fighting this unjust lack of ownership, representation, and transparency in the Black hair care industry with my Black-owned hair care challenge. We could talk about that later, Dr. Henderson. The point is, what's happened to our Black hair care industry is at the very core of what ails the Black community. It's why we can't win. All those jobs and businesses and dreams, all those billions and billions in Black intergenerational wealth and entrepreneurship, all that money that could have gone to our causes and candidates from Black hair, just gone, and no one cares. Why? That's what Botner wanted. That's what he promised, planned for, and predicted. And our own Langston Hughes also predicted what would happen to us without economic unity. He wrote this poem called The Ballad of Booker T. The tallest tower can tumble down if it not be rooted in solid ground. So being a far-seeing and practical man, he said, train your head, your heart, and your hand. Your fate is here and not afar. So let down your bucket where you are. Let down your bucket where you are. That's what Langston said. Put your money there, King said. So I pour into my bucket every day. My coffee, home alarm system, dry cleaner, pediatrician, dentist, neurologist, optometrist, these reading glasses, John's contacts and glasses, our wine, vodka, whiskey, pizza, popcorn, all my seasons and sauces. I buy them patty, sweet potato pies, our nightclubs, John's dress shirts, his suits, ties, cufflinks, all my makeup, perfume, my hair products, restaurants, the coffee shops we go to, my daughter's orthodontist, their dentist, Corey's dermatologist, John's chiropractor, all my designer purses and shoes, the nail salon I go to, the spa I go to, what else? Oh, my mortgage, all Black owned. This is how I live my life. I'm not some depressed and overworked activist because I have to look for Black firms. Once I let my bucket down, that part is not as hard as you think and not nearly as hard as the situation is dire. And here's the kicker. You ready? Here's the kicker. I'm still fly. I'm still fly, and I buy Black every day. I'm still fly because I buy Black. It's my responsibility, and it will be my legacy. My makeup is on point, Black owned. Lamique Cosmetics. Sister Kim Roxy has been in business for 16 years, giving those girls in Houston a business to learn from and believe in, while so many think all they have in that part of town are bullets to dodge. So why wouldn't I support that sister and buy my makeup from her company? Yes, I let my bucket down and I'm still fly. And my money and my mortgage are still safe, FDIC insured with Black owned banks, like One United Bank, the largest Black owned bank, and it's 100% internet friendly. You can open an account now while you're listening to me. No excuses. I have money in 3 Black community banks, and I have money in other banks too. But when I think about Dr. King's being killed, asking me to put money into a Black owned bank, I found a way to put some of my money into a Black owned bank. How can we even say that we want economic empowerment and equality and we won't put money into our own banks? How many Black owned banks do you have money in? That's not a rhetorical question. Or am I asking too much? Did King ask too much when he urged us to support Black institutions? Did Langston ask too much when he asked us to let our bucket down? Am I wasting our time today because companies like Henderson, with over 80% of its US revenues coming from the Black community and no Black distributors, no significant advertising in Black owned media, no accounts in Black owned banks, with that kind of money, we should have Hennessy hospitals in Harlem, a new chem lab at every HBCU. Hennessy should have funded the new Emory Black Entrepreneurship and Empowerment Research and Action Center, and I should be teaching at it. Seriously though, over 80% of its revenues and not even a supplier diversity program. They thrive in, while Black communities, their consumers communities, are under attack and falling apart. But no one talks about that. No one asks for, does or demands matter. And because we don't ask and because we don't talk about it, we don't take the next step and let our bucket down for Heritage Link Brands, a wonderful Black-owned wine importer owned by husband and wife, Harvard MBAs, Carrie and Selena Cuff. Heritage, my wine company, is the largest company in the wine industry to trade and sell Africa's Black produced wines. How awesome is that? One of those winemakers is House of Mandela, led by the women of the Mandela family, Makasiwi and Tukwini, respectively the daughter and granddaughter of Nelson Mandela. Together, Heritage, House of Mandela, and people like me who buy their wine, we create jobs for Black people in South Africa and America. One of my favorite heritage wines is called Bukatrabe, and I drink a lot of Bukatrabe, a lot of Bukatrabe. I have to do it for the movement. And it's not that I drink it every day, just Sunday through Wednesday. And then Thursday through Saturday, I switch to another Black made product, Uncle Nearest Whiskey. Oh, today's Thursday. So guess what I'll be doing after the show? Uncle Nearest Whiskey, award-winning, is owned by a Black family run by a Black woman, Fawn Weaver, who named her whiskey company after the slave and master distiller known as Nearest, who was credited for teaching a young Jack Daniels the craft of whiskey making. Now, Sister Weaver represents and reinvests in the Black community with her success, even as she faces unfair, utterly racist treatment in the tight-knit liquor and hospitality industries. Every day, I drink that Bukatrabe wine or that Uncle Nearest whiskey Or another good one is Seville Rum Cocktail. That's another great Black woman-owned company. Every day, I make that sacrifice because ain't nothing Maggie Anderson won't do for the movement. So if I have to drink that wine, if I have to drink that rum martini, that old fashioned for my people, I will. Each sip is for the movement, for King, for Selena and Carrie, for the Mandelas, for Don Weaver, for dear Uncle Nearest, for Africa. Now, I'm not sure I can get you to march like I march or to create change today, but can I get someone to have a drink with me? Come on, y'all. I'm talking big things here, and I'm talking to our sponsors and partners too. I don't just want to hear about how you will use a Black caterer for the next community breakfast. I'm not asking for more Black Lives Matter banners on your website. All that's nice, necessary, but at the same time, it's ceremonial and cursory. It whiffs of charity, not change. Pats on the back, not progress. This is my message to our friends and allies who are new to this movement, who have seen the rise and rule of racism of 2020, came out to march and sent me an email asking for help to buy Black and have the best intentions. And some of you, I think, want to do the work. But if you want what we want, what Dr. King wanted, you have to open yourselves up to the real hurt and hypocrisy, the lies, and how so much has been lost and taken from us. You have to see and feel what the Atlanta Black Chamber, the Empowerment Experiment Foundation, the Black Lives Matter movement care about and are fighting for, which is the exact same thing that Mr. Lee and Mr. Courts and Dr. King wanted and fought for. You don't fight racism and inequality by just promising to hire a couple Black folks or promising to up your diversity spending and advertising. The promises don't show sincere empathy and respect for the struggle my husband, John, and my friend, Bernard Bronner, who owns Bronner Brothers, face to thrive as a Black entrepreneur and simply survive as a Black man. The promises help the PR, but do nothing to address the pain. So are you ready to partner with and invest in some Black-run mutual fund portfolios, Black banks and credit unions, venture capital firms, and real estate funds? Are you ready to ask the big corporations you engage, your big funders, about Black firms and their supply chains? Do that. Do that. Then we'll celebrate the progress with some Uncle Nearest. I got plenty just waiting for you. And for my sisters and brothers in Atlanta, my fellow Black EU alums all over the world in the movement already, Tara, Toya, Nicole, Angel, Sean, Evan, Montez, Chuck, Araba, Kim, Rashonda, Tammy, Monique, my class of 1993. I want to challenge you too. The question for you is, are you ready to compel this change? Fight racism with your buying power and your success. Are you ready to choose sacrifice? Are you ready for public, consistent economic solidarity? Can that be our EU legacy? We got to do it. We have to start that bank in movement that Dr. King asked for. Join our Black Chamber, subscribe to and advertise in our Black owned press, like Rolling Out, headquartered in Atlanta, like buying all of our hair and beauty products from Black owned companies like Bronner Brothers, headquartered in Atlanta. Make sure all of our professional services, accountants, doctors, contractors, all come from our community. Make sure we visit local Black owned businesses at least 4 times a month. We have to do all of this, public, collective. Our civic, rights, and professional groups, you too, we have to ask our sponsors, our allies, not just for money, but for greater engagement of our Black entrepreneurs and institutions. We got to keep seeking, adding, building up Black-owned businesses in Emory's Eagle supply chain. You too, Emory, we can do this together. Then we have a movement, a peaceful, powerful movement. But if we can't do that, if we won't do that, y'all know I'm right. Y'all know it's time to get into good trouble. We can protest all night and day, but we got to stop fighting racism with our protests, then enabling racism with our purchases. We have to stop fighting racism with our protests, then enabling racism with our purchases. Economic unity is our most peaceful, most powerful protest. That's our challenge for 2021. I'm going to close now quickly with this testimony. 6 years ago, I was on tour preaching and teaching on the empowerment experiment. Some of y'all were there when the tour came to Atlanta. Jay Bailey, you came. Randy Fling, I know you're out there. You were there. A couple of tour stops in, I found out I'm sick. And it turns out the doctors say I've been sick for a while, but the symptoms had only showed up right when we started this tour. I learned I have a strange, unidentified adult onset muscular dystrophy. And as soon as they said it, I started to show it. I was getting weaker and weaker. It happened so fast. By the end of summer 2015, I could not drive, get out of bed, use the bathroom by myself. I was too weak to be a good mother, wife, daughter to my dad. I'm definitely too weak to live up to my calling to lead an economic empowerment revolution. But my friend, Eugene Mitchell, author of 7 Untold Rules for Black Empowerment and Legacy, begged me not to give up. He even asked me to give a speech at this big insurance industry event. His company, New York Life, was a sponsor. I was sad, I was scared, I was worried about people looking at me and pitying me. My condition had worsened that I could barely get out of a chair. I was running 3 miles a day 6 months before that speech, and the doctors had just damned me to a wheelchair and likely an early death. Right when my dreams started to come true for this movement, right when my life's calling had become crystal clear, and my little babies were becoming little ladies, everything I had worked for was crumbling and crashing right in front of me. I can't even stand up, and I'm supposed to give a speech about taking a stand, about being strong. So I did, and it was amazing. So amazing that one of the success stories I shared about a wonderful Black-owned, job-creating, stereotype-negating paper company out of Atlanta, South Coast Paper, is now New York Life's paper company. Yes, but this is another important part of that story. Stay with me. After they helped me off the stage, everyone jumped out of their seats. The audience just surrounded me, hugging me and holding me, crying on me, all successful strangers, all races, because they saw I was sick and I didn't look like I was going to make it through the year, and they didn't overlook it. Instead, they came to help me. They prayed on me. They encouraged me to keep fighting. That night, I learned that I got to lift up those who need it, even when I need lifting up myself. Yes, I learned that I have to sacrifice first on faith and know that the strength I need will follow. And look at me now, Emory, my EU family. Really, since that night, I've been getting stronger. A few days after that, I got off my meds, and for these few years since, without medication, with every city, every event, every business or group or church or corporate partner or school I work with, I get stronger. Every time I'm out there with y'all in the movement, I come home stronger, happening, healing. 6 years now. I believe now, even if there is so much death and distress now, I still believe like King did. Like King did. I've peered over the mountaintop too. And when I was able to stand up again, stand up tall, I could see over the mountaintop too into the promised land. And I know that when we stand up together, Carol, as women, as sisters, as united, undeniable believers in King's dream, as committed partners and diversity soldiers, seeking, supporting these vital business owners and not overlooking the circumstances of economic injustice. When we lift each other up, even when we need lifting up ourselves, we can not only see over the mountaintop, we move mountains. We make miracles. Do you believe me? Do you believe that I was healed in this movement? Alan was there. He saw it. It was a miracle. I was so weak. I was weak, but now I'm strong. Emory, Atlanta, I have a strength that only comes from sacrifice. And every day, I use that strength. Every day, I'm wiping the sweat of Sojourner. Every day I'm holding the outstretched hand of Harriet. Every day I'm bathed in the blood of Megha. I'm marching over that bridge in Selma with you, John Lewis, right now. With Mima's blood still pumping in my veins, even though she's gone and I thought I couldn't do this without her, I'm stronger than ever. I believe. Do you? If you believe now, if you are serious about today's theme, legacy and responsibility, if you believe that I'm strong, even though they said I'm weak, if you believe that of these Black-owned businesses in our neighborhoods, that they're strong, even though they say they are weak, if you believe that our John Lewis is dead but not gone, if you are ready to realize the blessings that these businesses, our talents, our unity, and our smarts can bring, if you truly believe that Atlanta is changing the world and Emory can lead in that change, if you believe that there is no social justice without economic injustice, then you need to do something. You need to stand up. Stand up. Show me. I've shown you my strength. Now show me yours. give me some healing this afternoon. Because if they tell me I can no longer stand, if this disease comes back, I need to know that each and every one of you will keep on, keep standing up, keep speaking out, keep giving and working and uniting and believing. Keep letting your bucket down so that our tall tower will never tumble down. Thank you, Emory. Thank you. Thank you all so very much.
Wow, I'm trying to process all of that. I know I'm live, but that is what I'm going to say. Fire, Maggie Anderson. That was fire. Fire, and for those that don't know what that means, Nicole can put it in the chat what fire means. It's a good thing. OMG, thank you so much for that wonderful, passionate, transparent, inspiring Martin Luther King Jr. lecture. That really was a talk to reorient us on the power each of us have inside of ourselves to enact change. And for you to share that with us this afternoon is just beyond words. Thank you so much. I'm going to give you a moment to compose yourself, because I know that's why I'm filling in, because when you pour out all of that, it takes a minute to bring it in. There are questions. People, I'm sure you can hear the applause from your Emory family. Is so proud to have you here. I know they are clapping where they are. And that your Emory community, where you receive your degree, is also very inspired by your words. And I'm sure you'll be hearing many words of thanks to them for this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel like
I said thank you, Dr. Farrell, for
you are very welcome.
Letting me be me, for letting me be me and letting me share our story.
Yes,
thank you.
Well, the authenticity is what this requires. Martin Luther King Jr. was about that, and we appreciate you putting it in the way that gift came to you, oftentimes, and the ways in which you interwove the academic part of your training into making this a movement of action. And so I want to go back to that. I'll ask a few questions, and then Nicole will let us know the questions from the audience. Please feel free to put it in the Q&A or in the chat, and Nicole will get those to us. But my first question, I love this. And for those that have not read our book, I was able to read that, Our Black Odyssey. And many of the questions come from that experience I had and from what I heard here today. So my first question is, sometimes people forget that the empowerment experiment was always about the study, the experiment, the knowledge, the science. This is in your book. Can we discuss that? The transformative ability for research and science to impact lives, change the world, reimagine policy practices that have real life implications. What do you say to that?
We definitely want to make sure that as much as this was a stand, we did do it in honor of our ancestors and elders and our future, our children. We wanted this to be data-driven. We wanted this to be respected as a study. We felt like this specific issue, this Buying Black, whatever you want to call it, economic justice, economic empowerment, just wasn't seen as a serious issue. It was always, kind of the afterthought, or we didn't feel like the issue was injected into the mainstream. So the only time we talked about these problems were in our Black meetings or Black conferences, over cocktails with Black friends. As much as we talked about education or healthcare, this issue was not talked about. And I still don't think until this year that we've been able to really talk about Black-owned businesses in the public sphere in the mainstream. So we thought the best way to do that was to attach numbers to it, to make it as undeniable and irrefutable as possible. So that, it's easy to say, oh, it's hard to buy Black. It's not about Black-owned businesses. But when you tell someone and you document, and you have the press following you, and you're attached to Northwestern University, that it really took 5 months to find a Black-owned grocery store in the United States of America. That's eye-opening. People just don't think about it. People just don't, just kind of assume, like we did, that there would be plenty of Black-owned grocery stores, and maybe we're not going to them enough, but they're there. They're not there. So we really needed the numbers, the study, the Northwestern piece, to elevate what we're doing, so that it was not just some guilt-satisfying project that some couple did. And the other thing was, as we wanted it to be a study, and we wanted Northwestern University to use our experience, our little receipts. Of course, that's not going to reflect what's going on in the whole world. It's just a microcosm, a very micro. But we asked them to perform regression analysis, so that we can extrapolate from that, from what happened to us, what could happen if a few people were to do more of what we did. So that was really the power of the empowerment experiment. And when I charged those business students at Kellogg, at Northwestern, to work on this study, I asked them to specifically hone in on middle and upper class Black households. I say that in quotes. So how Black households with income of 75,000 HHI or more. And this was intentional, because the part of this was, it's really our duty. Those folks who have kind of been able to make it, got a little money, have, are at a decent station in life, not the ones who are struggling and the ones who are trying to empower and the ones that are still victimized and voiceless. It's our duty. It's our responsibility to do more. That talented 10th feeling. So we wanted really just to focus on them. And the study focused on them. And in that study, we proved that if we were to just increase our spending, that part of the Black population were to increase our spending from the 3% to where we are now, only 3% of our money goes back into the community, to 10%. That's so easy. We could create 1 million new jobs in America. That's a lot. Creating 1 million jobs is like really, really hard to do. That's when you see all these relief packages and stimulus packages and all that stuff, none of them create anywhere near to 1 million new jobs. But Black-owned businesses are so undersupported. The small bump in support would have a geometric impact. It would be like creating the internet all over again. I mean, that's how big it would be for us to support these woefully undersupported businesses. So these kind of conversations and those possibilities only come out with the numbers, not conjecture, not rhetoric, not just my fist in the air. Our fist is in the air, but it's nice to back that up with some numbers. So we always wanted to make sure that we could defend ourselves with numbers, that we could elevate the conversation with numbers, and that we could present possibilities for change with numbers. So, and last thing about the numbers, in writing the book, that's when I learned just how horribly under-researched our Black business history is. We still don't have enough research around Black buying power. So we know what it is. We know that we're close to 1.5 trillion now in Black buying power, but we don't know where it is. Where is that money? Where does that money go every day? What does Black buying power do in America? So, and that's why we haven't been able to, but we wanted to continue the research by not just talking about Black buying power, but actually tracking Black buying power and the actual impact of job creation, stopping recidivism, increased tax bases in poor Black communities, all that stuff. We wanted to really track that impact. We talked about it in the study, but if we were to do more research and really have, let's say, 50 empowerment experiment families and following them, we could learn so much, and we could really jumpstart this movement. The numbers are so important, Dr. Henderson.
Yes, amazing. So I got a question, and I'll ask you about what higher ed's responsibility should be in that. I wanted to ask, did your study look at how other groups, other racial and ethnic groups patronize Black businesses? Because I know it's about buying Black but what about others who want to be allies, support the movement? Is that an opportunity for this sort of project?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these Black businesses, they're American businesses. We're just buying American, how I see it. And it just happens to be that the Black community suffers from the most unemployment. We suffer the most from poverty, from lack of employment opportunity and entrepreneurial opportunity. Our businesses can't even get started because of lack of access to capital. So because we're so behind economically, why wouldn't it just be an American ideal for everyone to buy Black? I mean, because if we want to stop unemployment, let's go, you know, how we're talking about the COVID virus, we want to get the vaccine to those places, those communities that are most at risk. So why not put money into those businesses that are 7 times more likely to hire Black people, 10 times more likely to hire Black folks who have been in the system, who are ex-felons. These are the folks that are hardest to employ. These are the communities that are hit hardest by poverty. So why wouldn't every American be interested in finding and supporting Black-owned businesses? But we did start that, Carol, to answer your question. And this is very new. I can tell you that I've been doing this for 12 years. We couldn't even say buy Black on TV. We couldn't even, at our events, we always had to talk about urban empowerment or minority. You couldn't even say the word Black. It was very taboo. This is still seen so much like it's racism. The counter, the retort was always, well, what if I buy white? What if I say I want to buy white? Which completely misses the point. It's just ridiculous. But that's how people approached this back then. Now, yes, folks are starting, folks outside the community are looking to buy Black. It's absolutely the best way to make this country better. I think it should be part of one of Biden's promises that we are going to do more to make sure that Black-owned businesses are part of the government contracting and do what we can to promote Black-owned business. All is a huge opportunity, and I would like it to be studied. I have not yet.
Yes, that would be. It's interesting you mentioned that because Black-owned Atlanta Hawks just recently, I think this was in December of this year, reinvested back into a Black-owned bank. They refinanced $35 million for the Emory Sports Medicine Complex. So, and George Floyd's murder. And, I think this is last year and this year will be an interesting year to see how people will reinvest, because I know sometimes it ebbs and flows. And this will go kind of following up on that question. You made a powerful statement in your book where you said, yes, empowerment experiment is about race, but not racial division. Discuss that with me, because of course, anytime you start attaching labels to things, because there's certain racial, ethnic categories you don't have to say because white-owned businesses are white-owned, and it's assumed that. But when you start pulling out businesses that are under-resourced, under-supported, and I'm really thinking about that in this moment now, COVID-19, I'm connected to the Metropolitan Atlanta Chamber and sit in on that and understand that COVID-19 is adversely impacting not only small Black businesses, and you got to call that out because that's the businesses that are impacted. But we know that COVID-19 is going to be this moment where there is a generational shift in wealth because of what's lost. But it's also an opportunity, I think, if we do this right, for what can be gained in strategic ways. So what do you say to those who are sitting there saying, well, there's a lot of Blackness there. It's not about race and not racial division. And I think it's an important distinction you make. That is not about race.
Sure. So first things first, you can't. Right. That's not about race. You can't talk about a problem or find a solution to a problem without identifying it. So just saying Black does not mean racism or anti-white or division. So that's kind of the simple answer. But the empowerment experiment at its heart, I created in my heart, was our attempt to find ways to fight racism, increase racial harmony, and show the world actually a better Black America. So it's we say Black because we need to identify the problem. We need to identify that Black-owned businesses, first thing, Black-owned businesses are undersupported. We have to show the specific, unique value of Black-owned businesses. So it was Black-owned businesses, not other businesses, that supported the civil rights movement. It was Black-owned businesses. It's Black-owned businesses that overhire or over-index in hiring Black people, and Black people are underemployed. I mean, that's just a fact. If this was not a fact, if everyone was inclined to hire Black people and look for Black people and give a brother a second chance who may have been in the system, then right, this would be about racial division. But we are looking for solutions to these specific problems. Asian American business owners in Black neighborhoods are not role models for young Black kids who only see gangbangers and criminals being successful in their neighborhood. A Black business owner who owns the bakery or the dry cleaner or the McDonald's is a role model for that kid. That's just a fact. It's just a fact. Seeing a flourishing, thriving Asian American beauty supply store in a Black neighborhood is not going to do anything for that Black kid who needs a role model, who needs a reason to stay in school and needs hope and an example to go after. That Asian American business is not going to do that for him. That's just a fact. And those Asian American businesses aren't as likely as that Black business to hire someone. Black businesses contribute to important rights organizations, schools, all this stuff that really, really help the Black community. The other businesses do not. So I'm not saying buy Black just because you're Black. I'm saying buy Black because these Black businesses have a specific role, have specific value, perform specific functions. And if we were to empower them to do that, in the end, we'd have I posit a less racist society. There are stereotypes that people depend on about Black people to fuel racism. The more they see stereotype negating, not that this is our responsibility, that's their problem, but the more they see stereotype negating young people, neighborhoods, the more they see Black people act in the way that we've always acted and not falling prey to these negative environments or negative influences, the more they see normal Black people act in the way they act, the more we counter those negative stereotypes that fuel the racism. Again, that's not our responsibility. They shouldn't believe those negative stereotypes, but one way to get rid of those negative stereotypes is to stop crime, is to clean up our neighborhoods. And one way to do that is to have more Black-owned businesses. So the goal of the empowerment experiment is to build up the Black community, solve the problems of the Black community, and only Black businesses can do that. I have to buy Black to bring more role models to the west side of Chicago. That's the only way to do it. I can bring in another Walmart to the west side of Chicago. Yes, it might help with the food and retail desert, but it's not going to help that kid who needs a Black role model. The last answer to that question, do the same thing. They Jewish people buy Jewish, Asian people buy Asian, and no one attacks them for doing that. When they do it, it's called patriotism, cultural pride, unity, all of that stuff. But when we do it, it's seen as divisive.
So that that was part of, I think, the resistance I think you speak of in the book when this first started, because this is a 12-year project where we are now based on when that you originally started. The other question I would ask is this idea about leakage. And it kind of undergirds some of what you said, that the money is, I think you quoted Michael Schumann, who said the principal affliction of under-resourced communities in the US is not the absence of money, but its systemic or systematic exit from communities. And so I think that's, you know, in some ways you're talking about how the dollars, Black-owned businesses in neighborhoods, and if we look at the 1950s and 60s, when neighborhoods were, when the country was segregated, there was certain money that was, as you mentioned in your talk, being recycled and in the ways that would support school systems, because people would buy homes, and how that system replicates itself. I'm gonna ask, before I go to the questions in the chat, I want to ask a question about the talented 10th, because this is one of those questions where people may push back a bit, because we focus a lot on the talented 10th. We put, you know, and Du Bois, and that's where all, you know, in some ways salvation. I know. That's where salvation's gonna come. And right. Yeah, and so my question would be, because some of us ascended into the talented 10th. Some of us were born into the talented 10th. Some of us worked our way into it. And I wonder what, you know, what that looks like across the board. But my question is, where do you see athletes? So now we have this other industry. You know, when I'm thinking, when Hank Aaron was a baseball player, he might, you know, the salary he made then is not the salary, you know, folks are making now. So where do you see them as part of the talented? What is the composition of this talented 10th group that you would say is responsible for helping to generate wealth? Right. Because this is really about wealth generation. And then that what we leave behind, because those dollars remake themselves. So how do you place that? Or how do you discuss that?
We definitely wanted to highlight the lack of solidarity from celebrities, athletes. If you recall, I remember a chapter in the book, I called them PBFs, prominent Black folks.
Yes.
And I mean, this is something very real to me. So the talented 10th part, that's mostly just saying that in terms of activism, when we think of just activism, protesting in the street and really fighting back, we're always thinking about the masses in underserved areas. The vision you have is not of, let's say, suburban or overly educated or corporate or wealthy classes being out there fighting for the people. And that's the vision I want. I want to see more people like me, like John, out there, fist in the air too, showing pride and loving Black people. I just feel like the quote, higher we get, farther away we get from our community. So it's really about that. It's about just because you quote unquote made it, living well and acting right isn't enough. You're supposed to be fighting just like everybody else. So it was really that message. It wasn't so much so, oh, we're better and this is our duty. It was kind of a call to action to them, like, you're not doing anything. You're being hypocritical, enjoying the fruits of their blood and brilliance, and now you're not doing anything. Where's your fight? So that was the first part. It's really it's kind of an attack on my peers. Like, you're doing nothing, and you can't claim to be Black and proud and I'm Black. So that was the first part. But the PBFs, that has been a really disappointing part of this experiment. Every once in a while, Dr. Carol, I'll just go on Twitter, and there's a way that you can isolate, let's say you're looking for a word. So I'll look up "by Black" or something like that. And then you can filter your search results to Twitter accounts with highest followers. So I would isolate it to, like over 1 million followers, something big. And never, I saw one time a tweet from it was Kerry Washington, where she said, buy Black, we got to support the Black community. And she was showing off a product that she had bought. I think it was a skin product, but from a Black woman-owned company. Do that same search, buy Black, and then take that filter off, all over the place. All the regular people, all the non-celebrities, the non-influencers, all those folks, it's all over the place. It's millions and millions conversation, people showing off the products they got. The movement is there. But when you get to the influencers, they're not saying it, they're not doing it. And it's this game that John and I play where it's like, you know, there's an award show or something and someone's about to give a speech. We just hope, like, okay, Maggie Johnson's up there. Hopefully they'll say something about buying Black or supporting the Black-owned businesses or economic justice. Nope. And so it's very, very disappointing because they can do so much to help this movement. Like folks like Magic Johnson, that he would buy those Starbucks, put them in Black neighborhoods. And it was just such a beautiful place to be. That happened during the empowerment experience. So he started doing that in 2009. And we loved going to Magic Johnson's Starbucks. And we just loved that whole thing that it represents. You know, we have these really nice coffee shops in Black neighborhoods and, you know, all the beautiful Black people in there, and we're supporting this business, and it was great. Then, and when he talked about these franchises, the Fridays and the Starbucks, he would talk about supporting the Black community and why he did it, and it's important. And then he sold them, you know, and it's like, this is what's so frustrating about the PBFs. Mm-hmm. This is not an investment opportunity. It's your duty. You should be buying up land in Black neighborhoods. You should be investing in Black real estate funds. You should be starting Black real estate funds. And instead, the biggest stuff we see, the biggest, like big stuff we see in talking about Black-owned businesses are from big white mainstream corporations. Walmart is going to give $30 billion to a Black-owned business fund or so on. So it's not, the announcement should be coming from our big Black millionaires, 10 millionaires, and the couple of billionaires that we have. They should be announcing it. They should be the ones saying we're going to do all this stuff. And then their white friends can come on down. But the PBFs are not doing nearly enough. And I don't know if I know they're Black and proud. I just think that maybe they're too golden, too afraid to alienate their friends or lose their influence. I don't know what it is, but they're not in the movement. The movement is mostly the folks who feel it more acutely and are suffering from the social crises that Black people suffer from. And there's more and more folks like, you know, I'm not balling, but I'm suffering. Those folks like me, we're starting to get more involved in the movement. We're at least shopping online. We're at least tweeting about it, you know, stuff like that. But those folks that are up on the celebrities, they're not doing nearly enough. They're not doing anything as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. So I'm sure if they're listening, you call to action, people. That is attorney Maggie Anderson's
call to action. It's an opportunity. It's an invitation.
So, you know, of course, your husband sent a loving note in the question saying he's proud. So I'm just going to say that. He said awesome in a big word. You're not supposed to say that. Yes, he did. I thought that I wanted to say that. There are 15 questions we are not going to be able to get to. So I'm going to try to lump some of them together. One is they want your husband's financial, how do they get a hold of, and I'm sure his business. That was one of them. So the other one is, how do you find Black-owned businesses in your community? So I think that would have been my last question. How can people be part of the solution? One viewer thought, and I know this is not what you were saying, only buy Black forever, if that is, no, and don't buy from other people. I think you advocating, that was not what you were saying. What you were saying, and you were very clear even in your book, that if only a percentage of people did this, you were, and how empowering it would be for African-American communities is in creating wealth, in transforming communities, and in creating jobs and all kinds of things that this would help facilitate. So the question is there a website where we can discover local Black businesses? And I can speak to that a little later, because before we end, I'll tell you about that this lecture that attorney Maggie Anderson has created, set off, gave us so much inspiration that there is a series called the Economic Empowerment and Inclusion Speaker Series that will follow this. There'll be 3 other lectures, and I'll mention that. And of course, Alan Anderson will be leading the charge in that. And I'll mention that right before we end. But give people direction on where they can find Black-owned businesses.
It is so much easier to do now than it was when we started off. So a couple of things, and I'm gonna take this opportunity to push my book. At the end of my book, I have a whole list of just great resources for you. I'll give you a couple now, but please buy the book. The book supports the Empowerment Experiment Foundation, our foundation. The money goes straight into Liberty Bank, our Black-owned bank. And I would like you to buy it from me. That's the only way you can get a signed copy with love. And that's the only way that you can make sure that the money goes back into the community. Please buy it from us at ourblackyear.com. That's the name of the book. Very easy, Our Black Year. And my website's the same site, authormaggieanderson.com. authormaggieanderson.com, ourblackyear.com. And on the website, I put on a video. I might have just taken it down, but I'll put it back up, where I gave kind of a challenge to end 2020 buying Black. So I gave my top 10 tips on what we can do to buy Black. So I give tips, some of my favorite businesses that I support every day, and great resources. So I'm going to direct you to the website for that too. Just off the top, just to get you started, one of the first places that I love to go are my Black chambers. All of us, especially in metropolitan cities like Atlanta, we have Black chambers of commerce, and they all have directories now of their memberships. And what's good about that is these members are vetted. They're obviously proud to be Black. They're part of a Black chamber of commerce, and they're part of an organization that is constantly challenging them and teaching them to be better business owners. So in a way, I just feel like they're more vetted. They're quality businesses when they're with a chamber. My favorite chamber is the U.S. Black Chambers. So it's usblackchambers.org, and they have probably over 200 chapters. Atlanta Black Chamber is one of them. And then so you go to the website, find your city, click on your chamber's website, and they have directories of their members and other businesses. The USBC, when you go to that site, also has an app. So this is all the members of the United States Black Chamber of Commerce. And I think last I talked to Ron, the president, it's like over 170,000 member businesses. So that's just a really quick place to start. Last tip, it has become so much easier to buy Black. So it's literally like buy Black plumber near me. I mean, it's really that easy. And then stuff will pop up. Most of our big tech sites, social media, search engines, they have come in tune to this Buy Black movement, and they've made it easier. So for example, if you wanted to find a florist, so Black owned florist, Druid Hills, near Emory, you didn't put Atlanta. Facebook, Instagram, Google, they'll find just a little check. Maybe somebody in Facebook said, "Oh, I just love my florist. She's Black owned, and she delivered the stuff on time." So it's not even the website or anything like that. They're just picking up on all the conversations. So you'll find all this stuff just typing in "buy Black" or Black owned, the service you're looking for, and near me or a certain city, and tons of things will come up. Last tip, I know I keep saying last tip, but I do have kind of it's a 2-pager that I give to my friends and partners after I speak, that has like 2 pages on favorite businesses, my how-to page, so how to find a Black-owned bank, how to find a Black-owned McDonald's, how to find a Black-owned dry cleaner, how to find those lists. I'm going to send that to you, and I'm hoping that maybe you'll be in touch with everyone who participated today, yes. And you can just send that to them from me with love. The last one is Black-owned hair care challenge. That's my other website.
Yes.
You are going to find lists of Black-owned hair care companies, list of Black-owned beauty supply stores. We all claim that we don't know one. There are plenty, not enough, but there are plenty, and they're on my website. I need you to go to blackownedhaircarechallenge.com. We need to reclaim the Black hair care industry.
Yes, Nicole Ingram has dropped that in the chat, people. So she has the
Great,
website.
great.
So that's wonderful. I'm going to close. Nicole keeps sending me 5 minutes. So we probably going to do 2 things in 5 minutes.
Okay.
We're going to do it real quick.
Okay.
One, because I promised you I asked you this. What about the Empowerment Experiment Foundation Center that you want to create in Atlanta? That was in your book. Yes. So I'm putting this out there, ATL. She stated in her book 11 years ago, well, the book was 2012, but she stated that they're thinking about this Empowerment Experiment Foundation that would be a place for research and education and Black economic empowerment. I want y'all to send a message to Maggie Anderson, show her some love, encourage her and John to get this done, or at least invite her to come to Atlanta to think about how they want to do that. She is definitely, that has been rooted here. That's where her roots are. Anything you want to say real quick about that before I talk about what Alan Anderson has coming up? Okay,
sure. So we created the Experiment Foundation during our year to memorialize the Empowerment Experiment, our year, and to have a place to continue the research that Kellogg started with that study. We don't want the Empowerment Experiment to be one study, our study. I believe that there is a whole curriculum that can be built around this in terms of supplier diversity, economic justice, economic inequalities, again, the history of Black-owned businesses, really studying the power of conscious consumerism. So much to talk about and learn. So I'm looking for an academic partner. So not just Atlanta, Emory, academic partner, where we could have, there are a couple of entrepreneurship centers, and I've done the research. There are probably 4 in the country now. We talk about either, University of Texas has a Center for Black Business History and Empowerment. Rutgers Business School has CUEED, is the Center for Urban Entrepreneurship and Empowerment, or something like that. So there are a couple of these popping up. The Empowerment Experiment will be a little bit different. Of course, we want to talk about entrepreneurship, but we would talk more about the empowerment. So we want to talk about conscious consumerism. We want to track, really study where the money, where our money is, the buying power, and really study the power of business diversity, the power of Walgreens giving a contract to Reggio's Pizza, the one Black-owned frozen pizza company, and letting them put their pizza in Walgreens. And now Reggio's has a plant on the south side of Chicago employing 300 people. So that's the big stuff. I need you to go to your dry cleaner. That's 1 and 2 employees, 3 and 4 employees. The big stuff is when Emory adds a Black business to their supply chain, when Walgreens lets a Black business onto their shelf. So I really want to study that opportunity. We can promote that opportunity and really get more business diversity, and not always have to beg and challenge and blackmail folks into doing this. We want them to see how powerful it can be for the country, for the economy. So I want the curriculum. I want to study where our buying power is. I want to study the power of conscious consumerism and supplier diversity. And I think it would be a fantastic thing to do in partnership with Goes Away to Business School. So not just Atlanta, but it would be great to come home to Emory and really start teaching Black business history and really start leading the world and showing the power of consumerism, business diversity for economic empowerment and fighting racism. We absolutely can do that. So Emory, any other schools in Atlanta, any other organizations that want to partner, I'd love to make that our home. My mother died in Atlanta, Dr. Carol. Mm-hmm. She is buried in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. That center would be named after her, and I would love to be able to visit her regularly and show her the future of the Empowerment Experiment. And how powerful that would be for your 2 gorgeous, lovely daughters as well. Baby. Indeed, your babies. Yes. So
Attorney Maggie Anderson, what can I say? This has been an amazing afternoon. The Q&A has been saying the same thing. Thank you, inspiring. I'm sure you will get all that love. They know how to get in touch with you directly. And what Nicole Ingram explained to me is that Alan Anderson, AVP of University Partners here at Emory University, all of the programs for the Economic Empowerment and Inclusion Speaker Series is at the emorycollective.com. So emorycollective, one word.com. And you can find the events that'll be happening during Black History Month. They will revolve around how Metro Atlanta is striving to become a more economically just and inclusive community, how small businesses are a catalyst for driving economic opportunity in Metro Atlanta, particularly in light of COVID-19 and its impact on communities of color. And the last one is how Emory is taking action to provide more access and opportunity for diverse businesses. That will be the last one. So please continue this journey. Yes, continue this journey with us to think about the ways that we can transform communities through research and action. That was King's call to us, to connect research to action. And that is also the ways in which we live out Emory's mission, is to create, preserve, apply a knowledge in the service of humanity. Attorney Maggie Anderson, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being our 2021 Martin Luther King Jr. speaker this afternoon.